My God, it's Stone Cold. The Hellraiser is back.
Here we go. Evolution of the Shield.
John Cena versus the Showstopper.
Hulk Hogan and The Rock in the same ring.
You will never take my place at the head of the table.
Undertaker with a Hell's Gate submission. Oh my God! What?
My God, Michaels just kicked Cena's head off.
The Monday Night Wars have come to WrestleMania.
It'll be The Rock. It'll be Austin one-on-one.
Third and five to the Undertaker.
Do you believe in miracles?
The streak is over.
Can you feel the heat? Say hello to Eddie. I don't care if you don't like me. Fight me. Do you feel it? Hey, heat on heat. Yo.
I guess not a lot of you guys remember what that theme song is. And if you do remember what that theme song is, you know that it is heel Eddie Guerrero. And that was actually only one of his heel theme songs, as he used another one called the Gangster Lane, if I remember that correctly. But that kind of sets the stage to where we're going today with our weekly segment of WWE Rivalries here on the WWE podcast. And it is the long-awaited, often asked, multiple time requested rivalry of Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero in 2005 that really started right around WrestleMania season. And I think that in a lot of ways people like to remember this because, well, for one, it was the last big feud for Eddie Guerrero before his tragic passing in November of 2005. Because although they were kind of hinting towards and planting the seeds towards a rivalry between him and Batista, you know, that really never got off the ground because of his sudden death. And the Rey Mysterio angle where Eddie Guerrero played the heel is kind of the lasting memory that we have of Eddie Guerrero. And more so than that, you could make the case easily that for both of these men, the opposite was their respective best rivals in their respective careers. And I think that may be more so true for Eddie Guerrero because he just didn't have near the sheer volume of guys that Rey Mysterio ended up facing on, you know, post Eddie Guerrero's passing. You know, he had feuds with Booker T and Chavo Guerrero and whatnot. And the CM Punk angle was probably one of his best. But we have yet to see the depth into Rey Mysterio's character as we saw when he locked horns with Eddie Guerrero. And obviously they kind of tried to reignite that with his 6-month-long program with Seth Rollins last year, one that just really made me resent Rey Mysterio in the here and now. But I think that when you look back on this angle, it probably not only showed a lot of depth in the Rey Mysterio character, but also, and if not more, in the Eddie Guerrero character. And that's where we will start as we start to unpack this rivalry. And let's set the stage here as to where Eddie Guerrero was at this time in his career. Obviously, at No Way Out 2004, he wins the WWE Championship away from Brock Lesnar. He goes on to successfully defend against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 20, arguably the best pure wrestling match on that stacked card. He retains against JBL, a newly singles heel version of JBL, as he broke away from the APA at Judgment Day, as he is disqualified in what turned out to be just a bloodbath, and ultimately loses the championship in one of the more shocking title changes in my lifetime, as JBL wins it from him at the Great American Bash in a Texas Bull Rope match. And over the course of mid-2004, we saw him play out his rivalry with John Bradshaw Layfield. And then starting at SummerSlam all the way to about the winter time, past Survivor Series, you see him lock horns with Kurt Angle. And they have the rubber match at SummerSlam where Kurt Angle actually wins that match. So it wasn't the rubber match. It was just the rematch between the two. Culminates with Team Guerrero beating Team Angle at Survivor Series in 2004. And by the time the Royal Rumble comes around, Eddie Guerrero is away from Kurt Angle. He's away from John Bradshaw Layfield. He actually participated in a fatal four-way match for the WWE Championship at Armageddon 2004 alongside The Undertaker, Booker T challenging John Bradshaw Layfield for the title. But by the time the Rumble comes around, there wasn't a whole lot left for Eddie Guerrero. And that's why when No Way Out comes around the corner and Big Show is challenging John Bradshaw Layfield in the main event for that pay-per-view, and John Cena wins the tournament to become the number one contender at WrestleMania for the WWE Championship, and actually FU's JBL through the stage set at that very same pay-per-view. And at this time, you didn't know if Batista was going to transfer over to SmackDown after winning the Royal Rumble. So you have all these moving parts in the main event scene, and Eddie Guerrero is nowhere to be found. And he actually ends up winning the championships, the tag team championships, that is, with Rey Mysterio, away from the Basham brothers, I believe. And then they build this storyline for WrestleMania 21. And it's basically a friendly contest between Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero in a one-on-one match that opened WrestleMania 21. And it's crazy to see where these guys were placed on the card after where they were respectively the year before. Eddie Guerrero walks into WrestleMania 20 as champion, participates, and wins the SmackDown side of WrestleMania's main event, retaining the championship against Kurt Angle. And Rey Mysterio at WrestleMania 20 participated in a cruiserweight turmoil match, one that Chavo Guerrero ended up winning. And now the next year, they're both facing off against one another as tag team champions at the bottom of the card. And it's almost as if Rey Mysterio went on the ascent and Eddie Guerrero went on the decline, and they kind of met there. As you could say, well, Rey Mysterio is still opening the match. Yeah, but this was his first ever personal rivalry that kind of took place at a WrestleMania. The year before, I already mentioned him being in the Cruiserweight Championship match. And the year before that, he went one-on-one with Matt Hardy for the championship as well, Cruiserweight. So this was a big moment for Rey Mysterio. But after the year that Guerrero had in 2004, it kind of seemed like a step back. And the build to this match was kind of really built around Eddie wanting to know if he was the better man. And as we approach the finish of this match, Guerrero maybe did not get the outcome that he was hoping for.
Somehow. Avoid a pinfall loss there. Ray's trying to keep Eddie away, but he got caught. Mysterio landed on his feet. Guerrero took a toe hold into the second rope. He went for it early. Could he hit the 619er? 619 connecting. Mysterio. Guerrero knocked halfway across the ring. Yeah, but can Rey Mysterio capitalize? Mysterio has been through a lot. That back has been worked on most of the matchup by Eddie Guerrero. Does Mysterio have anything left here? Up to the apron. Ray's got his eyes set on Guerrero, but can he do what he's got in mind? Mysterio going for the West Coast. Oh my God! He got him! He's got him here! And Mysterio stacked up, still managed to kick out. How in the hell did Ray kick out of that hardly driven powerbomb? Oh my God! And look at Eddie. Eddie cannot believe it. Arguing with the referee. You hear the Eddie chants here. I don't blame that. He's perplexed. What do you have to do to beat this guy? That's a great question. A number of times here in a high elbow by Mysterio. Mysterio across the ring. Hurricane, shoulders down. He got it. He got it. Mysterio got him from out of nowhere. Mysterio got Eddie. Here is your winner, Rey Mysterio.
So Rey Mysterio wins with it was a roll up. Essentially, it was an inverted. It was a version of a roll up, and they called it the Hurricane Rana. And I think Mysterio actually used it as the West Coast Pop, or called it the West Coast Pop. But he basically got him in a pinning combination, and it's crazy to think about that happening at a WrestleMania nowadays because it's just such commonplace. But this was an instance where a variation of the roll-up was properly used because it did also protect Guerrero in some way. And Eddie's visuals at the end of this match were very telling because it wasn't the typical visual you would see of a guy who just lost to his quote-unquote best friend and tag team partner as like, good one, man. Like, I respect you that you got the one up on me tonight. You were the better man. But it really rattled Eddie Guerrero. And from a character perspective, for good reason. You know, like I brought up before, Eddie Guerrero had just come off of a run in 2004 where he was the face of SmackDown, the WWE champion. And in 2004, Rey Mysterio was still middling around the cruiserweight division and lower mid-card, sometimes popping in and out of the tag team division. So for Rey Mysterio to get the win on Eddie Guerrero was an upset and something that could be used, or viewed rather, as a massive step backwards for Eddie Guerrero. And I guess you can maybe make the case that Guerrero's babyface gimmick was getting a touch stale. I personally believe that it didn't get as much longevity as it should have. I think that they kind of cut the legs off of it extremely fast when they handed the belt to John Bradshaw Layfield. But I think in large part why they did this was because by the summer of 2004, they had a very, very, very good idea of what they had in John Cena. And I think when they viewed what they had in John Cena, they said to themselves, we got to build a very big heel up on a legitimate run for this kid to take down closer to WrestleMania. And you know, Eddie Guerrero was on the older side of things when he did finally get his main event push. You know, when he won the championship, he was already 35 years old, I believe. If not a bit older, I think he was actually 37, pushing 40. So, although it was a nice story for Eddie to finally, you know, conquer the mountain and get a championship run, you have this guy in his mid-20s in John Cena with a ton of potential and really stealing the hearts of all the fans at this time. Not as much as Eddie, but it wasn't hard to see that the fans did love John Cena at that time more in a mid-card role. So it made sense that WWE, kind of with the foresight and long-term booking, started planting the seeds for John Cena to take over in 2005. And coincidentally, the night that Eddie Guerrero suffers this loss to Rey Mysterio is the very same night that John Cena wins the WWE Championship for the first time in his career. So as we start to move past WrestleMania and we get into the spring and closer to the summer, we start to see kind of the cracks in the Mysterio and Guerrero relationship. And they lose the tag team championships, and it is ultimately when they try and regain the tag team championships in a rematch that we finally see everything finally boil over and WWE finally pull the trigger on the now much anticipated Eddie Guerrero heel turn.
What the hell is this all about? has transpired here.
What is in Eddie Guerrero, right?
And now what?
No.
Oh! Mysterio torpedoed head first into the steel post, and that sickening thud as skull met steel. Oh, God.
Mysterio's he's split open.
You want to fight? Huh? Now you want to fight, is it? I'm right here, Rose. Come on, this is it.
I mean, Rey Mysterio just went through a brutal street fight. Believed Eddie was coming to his aid, and an ambush like this, and how's he doing now?
Rey Mysterio's defenseless, Cole, and Eddie Guerrero's merciless.
Eddie dragging the fallen carcass of Rey Mysterio, but
Why, Eddie? Why? Why, Eddie? Why, Eddie? Why?
what's Eddie doing? Oh my God. Not this.
No, Eddie, put him down!
Oh God.
So Eddie Guerrero caps off a horrible, brutal assault on Rey Mysterio with giving him the brain buster, I believe he called it, which was essentially putting a guy up for a vertical suplex and then spiking his head straight down on into the mat. But in this case, he did it on the steel steps. And this was a pretty gruesome visual to see. And one of the more extreme heel turns you'll ever come across in WWE. And I think they really put the message across that Eddie Guerrero was a sick SOB. And they didn't just turn him heel like in kind of like the Seth Rollins kind of goofy way that, you know, even though he's sadistic, he still has like almost like a smart ass personality. They really did it in such a far end of the spectrum because Eddie Guerrero was just such this beloved character. And he had been heel before, pretty much in his entire run in WWE up until 2003. When he was with the Radicals and then Los Guerreros. He had a tag team with Chris Benoit a bit, and I believe it was 2002. They attacked The Rock a few times when he was WWE champion at that point in time. But this was like a new side of Eddie Guerrero that we had yet to see. And it was like now that babyface championship run was over and they had squeezed all the juice out of that character, they really pulled a 180 and started building this guy as a main event level heel and a big sadistic heel. And, you know, aside from Triple H, you could make the case that he instantly became the second most hated heel in the company because even John Bradshaw Layfield had kind of been running for almost a year at this point. No, actually, I believe it was just a year. So even people were starting to maybe find JBL a little stale after running the last 12 months with him. So this kind of starts this massive, complex, multi-layered story between him and Rey Mysterio. And, you know, he cuts a really sadistic heel promo, like holding Rey Mysterio's mask, because after the assault, his mask was all ripped up. He was bleeding. And he starts talking about a secret that he has with Rey Mysterio. And that if Rey Mysterio I believe it was, doesn't accept a challenge against him, he was going to reveal this secret. And their first meeting comes at the Great American Bash in 2005. And the stipulation is if Rey Mysterio loses the match, Eddie Guerrero will reveal his secret. Lo and behold, Rey Mysterio ends up winning the match at the Great American Bash in 2005. But even though Rey Mysterio won the match and, in theory, got to keep his secret quiet, Eddie Guerrero had other plans.
No one beats me at the end, Ray. I always win at the end. I'm Eddie Guerrero. Nobody beats me porque yo soy la ley. I am the law. And I may have promised you and my wife to keep my mouth shut if you beat me at the Great American Bash, which you did. But guess what, Ray? I lied! And actually, well, I feel like telling a little bedtime story. Eddie's bedtime story. You know, the one I started long ago, the one with...
Hey, don't go there!
Oh, yeah.
Stop that!
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, lived a little boy named Dominic. Dominic! Ray is not your father! No es tu papá, hijo! The truth of the matter is, I'm your father, Dominic!
And we start playing a little bit of Jerry Springer on Friday Night SmackDown, and that's kind of what it is that Eddie Guerrero took a page out of, well, it wasn't Eddie Guerrero, WWE Creative took a page out of Jerry Springer's book and incorporated it into the Eddie Guerrero Rey Mysterio angle. And it is revealed that Eddie Guerrero is Dominic's biological father, and he gave Dominic to Rey Mysterio at birth, and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you guys all know that story. And I don't know if there had ever been an angle quite this personal in WWE in the entire... I'm really thinking about, because I was about to give like a specific time frame, but now... in all of WWE, has there ever been, and has there been since, a program as personal as this? And I would argue not. Like, I'm sure I could find something to do with the McMahons that would at least rival it, but this was something that was just so foreign for WWE, even though that they had gone beyond so many boundaries in the Attitude Era, like the beer truck and the black wedding and the hoe train and all those things where they were just crossing boundaries and lines and really pushing the envelope. I don't know if they had ever taken something like this and put it on television involving their families. Like, and at 10, I believe Dominic was 10 at this time, if not younger. And it's crazy to see him here. Like, now I just despise him, his character as a whole. I just can't stand him. But here he was just a little boy. And obviously we learned that behind the scenes, everyone gave the okay and whatnot. But, I mean, you want a quick way to get a guy over as a heel, say that, give him this storyline. Like, even if you love Eddie Guerrero or you loved any wrestler for that matter, they pull this stunt, you're going to instantly despise these guys. So they start building towards a big match at SummerSlam, and it's a ladder match for custody of Dominic. Like, you cannot get more gimmicky than this. And but it was a great match, right? You could make the case that at this time, these were two of the top 5 in-ring performers in WWE. So you always knew that you were going to get something great. And now you throw them into a ladder match with this kind of backstory. It was like a perfect storm of a story and an in-ring competition, and the in-ring talent being so on par with one another. Usually, like, the story's a bit better, but they kind of lack in the ring, or vice versa. But this was something where you had the best story in the business at the time, two of the best in-ring guys at the time, and this perfect storm of just perfection on all fronts. It's funny when you watch this match back at SummerSlam, you see the part where Vicky Guerrero, I guess, mixed her cue or her spot, and Eddie like falls on the ground and says, "Damn it, where's Vicky?" And that was just one little funny spot in an otherwise great match that had an even better finish.
His wife, Vicky, doing out here? She doesn't belong out here. Eddie Guerrero near the top of the ladder, and his wife Vicky is in the ring. Eddie. She did the right thing. I don't think she meant to mean hurt her husband, but you're right. I think she shot herself. But well, she said earlier on that she realized that he wasn't doing this for Dominic. He was doing this to tear apart the Mysterio family. And look at the look of almost thanks from the face of Rey Mysterio, who now positions the ladder. Eddie landed harder. Just get up there, Ray. Just come on, Ray. Man, climb the ladder. Get up there, Ray. Mysterio going toward the briefcase. Come on, Ray! Ray is almost there! Oh, no! Guerrero's got the ladder again! Mysterio near the briefcase! Vicky pulling her husband away! Oh, my God! Are you Ray's got the briefcase! Ray's gonna do it! Come on, Ray! Yes! 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 Oh, yeah! His wife did that. Rey Mysterio has his son back. Oh my God, Paul, this is awesome, man. Oh man. Rey Mysterio has Dominic back. Dominic is going home with Ray and Angie. Dominic is going where he belongs, Cole. And there's Angie, Rey Mysterio's wife, in tears as she makes her way out here to ringside. And I'll tell you, Ray and Angie have a hell of a lot of thank yous to give to Vicky Guerrero.
And Vicky Guerrero's career starts as a mega babyface, helping Rey Mysterio retain custody of Dominic, but it was something that really needed to happen because you couldn't have Eddie Guerrero lose again to Rey Mysterio. That would have been 3 clean losses to Rey Mysterio, and this was the big one, right? This was the big one at SummerSlam for custody of Dominic. And they did obviously have another match actually on SmackDown in September, a steel cage match. But this was really the big payoff. And to have Eddie Guerrero not lose completely clean was so quintessential to keeping his character legitimate. Because although we don't see it a lot in modern day WWE, it is very important to establish and maintain a hierarchy. And no matter any way you want to slice it, and even though this was a way to try and catapult Rey Mysterio into that main event scene and get him some legitimacy as a top echelon competitor, you still had to keep Eddie Guerrero higher than him at this point, at least in my opinion. And that reigned true because following this program, Eddie Guerrero starts to plant the seeds for, which I believe was an inevitable rivalry with Batista, who came over and was the World Heavyweight Champion and the face of SmackDown at this point. And I truly believe that if it was not for his passing, it would have been Eddie Guerrero versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 22. So although you wanted to get Rey Mysterio over as a main event level guy, and obviously they were going to make him lose custody of his son to Eddie Guerrero, even in kayfabe, like you could never go down that road. It was still important to protect Eddie Guerrero, and having Vicky Guerrero interfere, push him off the ladder, and then restrain him from climbing the ladder when Rey Mysterio was rocketing his way up there. It maintained that level of, okay, Rey Mysterio could not win the big one against Eddie Guerrero clean. So, as I mentioned, it actually caps off in a steel cage match between the two on an episode of SmackDown in September. And it was on this episode of SmackDown inside of a steel cage where not only we got the payoff to this rivalry and the ultimate blow-off, but where we saw WWE maintain the hierarchy on their roster.
My God, that was nasty. And now look at this. The door's open, Cole.
And Eddie Guerrero just has to crawl out of the ring.
Ray can't stop Eddie now. That's it.
And walk down the steps.
His feet just got to touch the floor. Guerrero. Won't look back, but he's got to own this to it.
What he's got to do is...
What the hell is that? Well, I think Eddie, look at this.
Frog splash from the top.
1, 2, 3.
It's over. Eddie Guerrero defeating Rey Mysterio. Here's your winner, Eddie Guerrero. The damage was done when Rey missed the crossbody. Eddie Guerrero wanting to add insult to injury, deliver the frog splash, and pin Rey Mysterio for the very first time.
Exactly. Eddie Guerrero has finally defeated Rey Mysterio.
And now this. And now the trash talk.
Well, that's his MO. That's Guerrero's MO. There's no need for this. Fine, great. You got to win. The monkey's off your back, I guess.
And how he won was so telling, because he's walking out of the cage. He has this match won in the bag, no problem. He just has to walk down the steps, and he gets back in the ring and hits a frog splash off the top rope to put an end to Rey Mysterio once and for all in a symbolic way and pin him for the very first time. And like I said before, this was to just reassure everyone who was the better wrestler at that time in storyline and where they were respectively placed on the card. And like I said before, I think they were priming up Eddie Guerrero for another championship match at WrestleMania, this time against Batista. And as we all know, it went on to be Rey Mysterio, who won the Royal Rumble and won the World Heavyweight Championship away from Kurt Angle and Randy Orton in a triple threat match at WrestleMania 22. But had it not been for the passing of Eddie Guerrero, I truly do believe it would have been him main eventing the SmackDown main event involving the World Heavyweight Championship. But you know what? We got an awesome storyline out of it. And even though it is just so tragic that Eddie Guerrero passed away a mere 2 months later, we just have to feel oh so lucky that we were able to see him give us his absolute best in this historic rivalry with Rey Mysterio. Well, anyway, guys, that's all I got for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed this much anticipated Rivalries episode between Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. As always, you can get me on Twitter at ADemarco25. You can get Matt on Twitter at wrestling_audio, or you can email him at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to catch our What If segment dropping tomorrow exclusively on Patreon. And until then, guys, I will talk to you next time.